police were genuinely run off their feet, and the investigator was suddenly swamped with questions. Why are only human feet being discovered? How do they end up washing ashore like this?
Who are their owners and where are they? Why is all this happening specifically in this region?
And why hadn't such discoveries appeared to us before? Around that same time, news of these feet started appearing in newspapers, on forums, and the public grew concerned. Adding fuel to the fire were various pranksters who would put chicken or dog bones into sneakers or simply toss shoes onto the shore to further frighten the population. These pieces of evidence, however, were false. But let's gather the real evidence that was available to the police. All 5 human feet were found wearing socks and sneakers in a highly decomposed condition. They were found by the water within an 80-kilometer radius of Vancouver. All the feet, except for one, were male. Their owners were not listed in the DNA database. After comparing the DNA samples taken from them, the police issued their first major statement. Finally, the 2 discovered feet belonged to a single individual, a man. And inain the zik is, and inain tanain dein beleman. It only remained to understand where the rest of the man was. The theories were very different. For example, forensic expert Gail Anderson believed it was unlikely all these people died in separate incidents. Most likely, a plane had crashed into the water somewhere nearby, and then, when workers were cleaning the ocean floor, these remains were disturbed and the severed body parts floated to the shore. Pause. A decent theory, if not for one crucial detail. Pause. There were only 4 passengers, yet by the end of 2008, more severed legs had been found than they could possibly have had. The findings are becoming even more diverse and even more terrifying. Now, remains were being discovered on the other side of the ocean in Washington State, USA. The 9th foot specifically washed ashore there, and it belonged to a teenager. This particular incident stood out because for the very first time, the foot wasn't wearing a sneaker, but rather a hiking boot, something like this one. Subsequently, this specific type of footwear, complete with bones, was found on several more occasions. And in that same 2010, local writer Shane Lambert burst onto the scene with a new version. He recalled that in 2004, a massive earthquake occurred in the Indian Ocean, causing a tsunami up to 15 meters high. And it was precisely its victims, or rather their remains, that could have surfaced in Canada and the USA. Bodies had to travel such a huge distance to America, and they had a full 3 years for it. Basically, enough time. At that time, 187,000 people died and another 43,000 went missing. In theory, bodies could drift for weeks, slowly decomposing in warm tropical waters until the only preserved parts would eventually wash ashore in North America. Yoshi, poekze, and yes, those would be the feet. Sneakers, for example, would be zifes I praeseli could have saved them from seabirds. Other tsunamis could also have brought remains. For instance, the 2011 Japan tsunami swept whole towns into the ocean. Their debris was indeed carried to America. Among them were a bowl, a boat, and a sign for a Japanese village. There was even a motorcycle. It arrived with the container its owner had stored it in. So, Pacific Ocean currents can actually carry things from Asia to America. If a container could float all the way from Asia to America, then a leg surely could have too. But alas, this particular theory was not supported by the facts. More than a dozen victims have already been identified, and not one of them is connected to Asia. All of them were Americans or Canadians.